The BMI of an individual is used to measure the body fat of that particular individual based on the individual's height and weight. In this section, we are going to build a Shiny app which takes an individual height in inches and also the individual's weight in kilograms towards calculate the BMI. You can see whenever I change the height, the BMI changes. Whenever I also change the weight, the BMI changes. So this is just a simple BMI calculator which we are going to build in this section using the Shiny framework. The BMI is measured in kilogram per meter square, which means we have to convert the height given in inches to meter and also divide the kilograms by the height, the square of the height. So we are going to start building our app. So first of all, you click on this drop down arrow. You can see Shiny web app. You click on it and you give your app a name, BMI. So you can change your app directory. Here I'm going to be using the course directory. So you can put it in any directory that you want. Then you can see single file app. Make sure this is checked. Simple app.r. Then you create. So you can see we already it has the app file, the web app file, Shiny web app file has been opened for us. So I'm going to highlight all this and clear it. Shiny app, our boilerplate. Then we have our boilerplate code. So first of all, now in this BMI app, we want to start with the user interface. So we're going to start by designing the user interface. Then we move next to the server. So in this lecture, I'm going to be designing the user interface. So we're going to design the user interface in such a way that we have a page. In this page, as you can see, I've already run the app. In this page, we are going to be having two panels. So we're going to be having the sidebar panel. We're going to be having the main panel. So the input is going to be given in the main and the sidebar panel, while the output will be given out in the main panel. So we have functions which allows us to you have a function called page with sidebar. So this allows our page to take two panels, the sidebar panel and the main panel. So we're going to type page with sidebar. The W is in capital letter, camel case. So all we are going to do, the sidebar panel and the main panel is going to go inside this function page with sidebar. So first of all, we give our page a name, header panel. We give our page a name, header panel, and we call it BMI calculator. Body mass index. So this is the name, okay, in brackets. So this is the name of the page. Then next we move to the sidebar panel. I told you that this sidebar panel is going to be taking the inputs. So anything that we want to input inside the app is going to be given by the user in the sidebar panel. And this sidebar panel is going to be taking two inputs, that is the height and the weight, which is going to be used in calculating the BMI. So we have I told about this function, numeric inputs. It allows you to the user to give an input to the web app. Now let me show you the documentation on the numeric inputs. So by the time you check the numeric input documentation, you can see that it has various arguments. This is the input ID. I told you that in the server side, we will be using various inputs, and those inputs are differentiated using a $sign. So this ID allows you to differentiate the various inputs in the server. So that's the input that the server is going to be taking from the user interface. Then you now have the label. So it's going to tell the user that this is the value you are going to provide in the web app. They will also have we also have value. So this is the value, or let's say the default value that is going to be in the input as at that moment. They will also have the minimum argument. This gives you the opportunity. This tells your web app that this is going to be the minimum value that you're going to be using. It restricts your web app to the minimum value that's going to be used in that particular input. And the maximum also restricts the web app, that is the maximum number you're going to be used in the input. They also have the step. These steps tells you that when you want to use, for example, the drop down arrow, when you want to use your arrow keys to select between values, you can use this step. You can give a step of 10. Let's say give a step of 10, you're using minimum number of 10, and the maximum number is 40. So by the time you are moving, each step you are moving by 10 is going to be 10, 20, 30, and 40, and so forth. So this is basically just the arguments about the numeric input. So this is what we are going to be using here. So first of all, we give our input ID, which is going to be HT. When we go to the server side, we are going to be referring to HT to allow the server to get values from HT. Then the next is going to be enter your height, which is going to be the label in inches. Then I told you that we're going to have a default value 70. We also have minimum, which is equal to what? Let's give the minimum as 50. Minimum weight. We have maximum. Let's give it as 80. And we have step. Let's give our step as 1. Now, that is our first numeric input. Please mind you, don't forget that this numeric input function is going to be in the sidebar panel. So always remember, when you're having two panels on your page, you have the sidebar panel and you have the main panel. Most of the times when you use page with sidebar, you usually use it when you have an input at one side and you have output on the right hand side. So now your comma is important because we are in a function sidebar panel. Then the next is going to be numeric input. Also, this is going to be for the width. So we give our ID. The ID is going to be WT. They will now say the label is going to be enter your weight in kilograms or pounds, depending on the SI units you are using at your site. So kilograms, then now I'm going to be using, let's say I'm going to be using 40. So next I'm going to give the default value in kilograms, which is going to be 50. Then I'll give my minimum value as let's say 40. Then maximum. I'm going to give the maximum value as, let's say, 100 kg. Then step is goes to 1. So now this is our we are done with the sidebar panel. So this is all for the sidebar panel. Then next we go to the we go to the main panel. So remember to put your comma. Then we go to the main panel. This is where the output is going to be shown. So one thing that what we call HTML tags. Though you don't need the knowledge of HTML and CSS to understand Shiny, but these functions is what you are going to be using to give your heading. So we want to give headings in our we want to give headings in our app. So the first heading we are going to be using, when you check, let me show you. Let's say H3. So you can see these are the various headings. We have heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So heading 1 is a lot bigger than heading 2, and also than heading 3, than heading 4, than heading 5, and than heading 6. So let's say we want to check heading 1. You can see. So when you see H1 is actually just a means of giving a heading. So just like the way I said header panel. So it's something similar to that. So if I say H1 on my main panel, it's going to tell me that okay, it's going to give you a label of results. So H1. Then the next heading I'm going to be using H3. So H3 is going to display a label of your height is. Your height is. Then also put a comma. Then next we are now going to use verbatim text output. So which is going to be OHT. So we are going to calculate. It's going to take the height for us. So this verbatim text output is a variable that we're going to be declaring in our server side. We will come to that later. Then the next is going to be H4. It's going to give a label of your weight is. Your weight is. Then next, we also use the verbatim text output. So OWT is going to be the name of the variable. When we come to the server side, we are going to get to those later. Then H4, the next heading is going to be your BMI is then we are also going to use verbatim text output. So this verbatim text output is going to output, you can see it. So let me go to it. Okay, I think it was just so it's going to render a reactive output variable as text within an application page. So it's just like the input that you gave to the web app, the verbatim text output is also going to output it on the main panel. So verbatim text output, we have prediction. Then we also have H6. So H6 is the list of all the headers that start with watch. It's the list of all the headers that start with H. So H1 is going to be bigger than H2, which is also going to be bigger than H3. So I'm supposed to actually use H3 here. Sorry, H3. Then I'm going to use H4. So H3 is bigger than H4, and likewise H4 is also bigger than H6. So that's going to be all for the main panel. Now let's run our app and see. Okay, there's a mistake here. Supposed to be a C. So let's then run the app and see. Okay, yet also I haven't actually completed it. Output. So our app is loading. So you can see the user interface for the app. So let me expand it so that you can see what I'm talking about. So you can see what I'm talking about the main panel. You can see the main panel. This is the main panel. This is the sidebar panel, and this is our header. So when I was talking about the function header panel, this is it. When I gave BMI calculator body mass index, when I was also inputting the values of the function sidebar panel, this is it. When I was also inputting the value of the main panel, you can see that this is the heading H3. It's bigger than H4. You can try it also. You can try various heading like H6. You can try various heading like H5. You can also try H1, and you can see how they are different in size and also in boldness. So this was actually taken from HTML, but in R it was made a function. So when you just use H1, you just put a text in it. So you can see the main panel. You can also see the sidebar panel. And this was the heading we gave from the header panel. So basically just the UI we are done with the user interface of the body mass index app. So in the next lecture I'm going to explain how I want to go design the server interface. Also, one more thing, you can see what I was talking about when I was talking about the minimum value. You can see. You can also see the steps. I can't go less than 50. You can see the minimum value. I can't go less than 50. So when I also go up, you can see I can't go more than 80. Same thing too also in the weight. I can't go less than 40. I can't also go more than I can't go more than 100. So you can see it, and you can also see that the minimum values that we gave. So this is the user interface. These are what the user can control. Anything beyond this, the user cannot control. The user cannot change the BMI calculation. What it does, all those is at the server side. So this is the input also for the height, and this is for the weight. You can also add more input using the numeric input. Before we move on to build the server side of the web app, in this lecture we are going to create the BMI function. We need the BMI function that is going to calculate the body mass index of an individual, taking the individual's height and weight as input arguments. So we are going to be needing that function in our server side. But before we do that, we have to create that function. So first of all, we have to know that our input is in inches, as you can see here. Why? Our input height is in inches. Why? The input weight is in kilograms. So, and the body mass index is measured in kilogram per meter square. So we need to convert this input to we need to convert this input to meters. So now, first of all, we name our function BMI function. So it is going to take height and weight. It's going to take the height and weight to give us the body mass index of an individual. So this is going to return this value, the weight, which is already in kilograms. Our weight is in kilogram. Then Then for us to convert height to what? In inches to meters, we multiply it by what? 0.0254. So this is going to be our what? Height converted to what? Meters. Then we raise it to the power of 2, which is the what? Formula for calculating BMI. Weight divided by height raised to the power of what? So that's why we have the measurement as what? Kilogram per what? Meter square. So now let's run this function. Now, if for example we have an individual who has a height in inches of, let's say, 70 and weighs, let's say for example the individual weighs 70, then the BMI is given as what? 22.1429. So this is the BMI function which I have already created. We are going to be using this BMI function in the the server side of the web app to let the server side know that this is how we are going to calculate the BMI. Now we are ready to build our server side. We already have our BMI function, which we have already in the previous lecture, which we created. We also have on our user interface where the server side is going to take its input from these two values, the numeric inputs. You use the numeric input function. It is going to take the height and also the weight. And also on the main panel, anything that is calculated by the server side, it is going to be displayed for us on the main panel. So now what is just left for the server side is just to process all these variables. So first of all, we are going to and mind you, we declared three output variables. We have OHT, which is going to show us the height of the individual. We have OWT to show us the weight of the individual, and also our BMI value, which we just called prediction. You can actually name it. Let's rename it. Let's say BMI value. So now we have renamed it as BMI value. Now we are going to say output OHT, which is our height variable. Then we now say render print input. So it is going to take the value of our input and print it out for us. So render print input HT. We gave the ID HT. So that was the ID we gave for the height input. Then the next we are going to give OWT, which is our weight output. Render print also. So it is going to take the value of the weight and I'll print it for us. Then the next is going to be output BMI value. So this is going to also be render print. So that is where our BMI function comes in place. So it is going to calculate it. Then we'll now say calculate the BMI using the input height and also the input weight. So any value that this BMI has, then this output BMI value is going to render it out. All this is happening in our server side. So now let's run the app and see. So you can see we already have our app. So since there seems to be, we're going to press enter. So the BMI is not, let's see what the issue is. So this is where the issue is. You can see BMI, we actually use BMI value. There was an underscore, so we did not use it. That was why the BMI wasn't showing. So let's run the app again and see. So you can see our BMI now for someone that with a height of 70 inches and a weight of 50. So now let's say someone has a weight of 80 and has a height of 60. So you can see the BMI. So let's say this another individual has an height of 64 inches and a weight of 63. So you can see the BMI changes. You can see our weight here. You can see our height given in this place. So this is a very simple web app. This is a BMI calculator, and you can see how easy it is to build a web app in RShiny. So you just took us how many lines of code? Just 33 lines of code. No knowledge of HTML, no knowledge of CSS to design the web app. So this, you can check the resources in this section for the source code on GitHub. So, and you can also try and tweak it and see what can you add to it. There is a function called slider input. You know, this is a numeric input which gives the user the opportunity to input the number to type in a numeric value. We also have a slider input. So in slider input, supposed to be slider, and I. So the difference between the slider input and the numeric input we are going to see now, in the slider input, it allows you to slide the values. So you can see it as I'm sliding the values, and the values is are changing. So this is the difference between the slider and the numeric input. The numeric input gives the user the opportunity to type in the numeric values, while in the slider input, the user just have to slide. So the step is actually very important in the slider input. So you can see they are moving by a step of 1. If I use a step of 10, it's going to be moving by 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and so on. But here I'm using a step of 1, so you can see it's moving by 51, 52, 53, 54, up towards 8 is going to be moving by a step of 1. Same thing to also the step in this side, you can see 51, 52, 53, 54, 55 is moving by a step of 1. So we have the slider input and we have the numeric input. You can check your cheat sheets which are provided in the previous section. You can check for various kind of input formats in the Shiny framework.